Can you please let the rest of the chapter know on whether you were a former officer in the society and what position you held and if you know approximately when? So we'll begin with Katie.
Thanks. I last one in, first one out. Katie Fiorgi, State Fire Marshal's Office. I did hold the position of chairperson until September when, there it is, until it was passed off.
I'm James, City of Bloomington, and I'm currently Vice President.
Steve Zachary, State Hall Fire Marshal, no position.
Oh, there's.
And I also have no position. I'm Rich Pearson with the State Fire Marshal's Office. Well, I'm really a no fire guy. I'm Robert Schroeder. That's true. And I'm with myself. I used to be an active member years ago before I went out to California and had my midlife experience.
Gordy Bates, Minneapolis Fire Department.
Steve Marvishak, Coulier.
K Almand.
Tom Mantel, Shot Coulier.
I'm Paul Anderson with 3M, and I was a program chairman, and I think a vice president and president of the chapter. You're asking me when it was, I'm trying to remember when it was. Mid-80s.
Yeah, Wilson, in between jobs.
Steve Waller with Industrial Risk Insurance.
Dave Goodman, local contractors.
Bob Hirsch, low voltage contractors, and Jan Johnson. I'm Sandy Eggestal, starting up a new company called Eggestal Associates after a long career at Honeywell.
Tom Miller, Grinnell Fire Protection.
Meyer, North Fire Design.
Paul Walker, Control Fire.
David Holey, Newman Companies, and has been past secretary treasurer.
Mark Connor, Reliable Automatic, current secretary treasurer.
Jerry Mank, Superior Fire Protection.
Chuck Ormston, Summit Fire Protection. Dave Hewitt, Response Fire Protection.
And Ken Strand with Future Fire, and I'm the current chairperson.
Sean Hoppy, Harris Fire Protection.
Warren Anderson, Summit Fire Protection.
Tony Martino, Global Risk Consultants, that held every cash guy position in here. Some of them a couple of different times between the early 1960s into the 70s.
Glenn Mark with Electric Scientific Company.
Scott Lambert, Premier Fire Protection.
Kristen Carlson with Electric Scientific Company.
And I'm Phil Walker with Control Fire Consultants. I'm Incorporated, current chapter president, past secretary treasurer, past program chairperson, and I don't know what other position you're on right now. And I'd like to welcome you all tonight. We're going to go through some announcements real quick. I guess I'll start out with those of you who were at last month's presentation from All of America toward the fire sprinkler alarm systems. I heard that was interesting. I also heard that the program afterwards was interesting also. And I guess the ownership of the Knuckleheads has already apologized to everyone for that one. So that's as far as we'll let that one go. Let me see. I guess a couple of quick things. For Mark Connor, if you have not left your email address with Mark, please give it to him or give him one of your business cards after the meeting, because our goal for when we start up the 2000-2001 season in September is to have everyone on the email list. Trying to eliminate the mailing list completely as much as possible. Right now we're relying on email, fax, and mail, and we're just trying to get that down to non-enemy. So if you don't believe that we have it, please see Mark over there after the meeting, so we can get you on the list. Even if you're not a member of the Society or a chapter, feel free to give that to Mark also, because we'll still get you on the list, and maybe we'll get you interested in other meetings you'll join. Membership is only $20 a year. It might make up to the astronomical figure, $25 each year. So please keep that in mind, and like I said, let Mark know. Real quick items here. March 31st, Atlanta Hilton Towers in Atlanta, Georgia, smoke management for Atria and other large spaces, sponsored by SFPE seminar. I have information on that if anybody's interested. A lot of information here. There's also Part 1, National Fire Alarm Code, and Part 2, NFPA 13, 1999, installation of sprinkler systems, April 5th at the St. Louis Airport, St. Louis, Missouri, which is sponsored by SFPE. Here's something I like. Compliments the State Fire Marshal's Office. If anybody didn't attend one of their seminars, we got this handy-dandy little CD. And the State Fire Marshal's Division, for the Minnesota Uniform Fire Code, it's slick. It really is. And I hope Rich has dozens of them to pass out.
We've got plenty of, not here, but we can just give us a call and we can get you a copy.
You're on vocals.
And anybody that's not familiar with it,
Yeah, I'm on vocals.
Yeah.
I play drums on that one.
talk to Rich after the meeting. He'll give you the best of Rich on CD. That influence too. Announcement that was given to me for NFSA Region 15, the 4th Burning Golf Classic. It's going to be held Monday, September 11, 2000 at North Oaks Golf Club. And mark your calendar today. You can either see me or you can see John Hoppy right there for more information. John, if you're still the current local president here of NFSA. Okay. Okay, co-chair of the golf tournament. John will be the person to see on that. Seminar is centrifugal fire pumps, and there are many dates and times. I'm not going to read them all off. And for registration, you can see these put on by National Technology Transfer Incorporated. So, and there are continuing education credits involved in this. So, if you're interested in centrifugal fire pumps seminar, one to 2 day seminars. You can also see me. NFSA is sponsoring many of their mass online seminars. If I have a show of hands if anybody's participated in any of these online seminars that NFSA has put on recently. Okay. We got a few coming up. April 4th, Principles of Combustion. April 18th, Roll Paper, Rubber Tire Storage Protection. May 9th, alarms for sprinkler systems. May 23rd, water spray systems. June 13th, water tanks. June 27th, sprinklers and computer rooms. It's only $50 per seminar to sign up, and you get as many people as you want online. And it's both audio and visual presentation, so if you're interested in that, contact the investigator host. You can see me and the information. Anybody here plan on going to the NFPA World Safety Congress Exposition Denver this year? Show of hands. I hope to see all of you there. I'm going to attend. I'll be there myself, and I can't wait. And part of that is your SFP's 50th anniversary, which I'll let Kathleen get into. She takes a stand here in a little bit. We have a call for papers, the 3rd International Conference on Performance-Based Codes and Fire Design Safety Methods. It's June 15th or 17th at Lund University in Lund, Sweden. If anybody's looking for a Swedish vacation in June, well, that's perfect. That's comfortable. Okay, you can see me. I have information on that. Let's see if I have anything else here. There are many SFPE educational opportunities. We have many brochures that Kathleen has left up at the front table.
Not taking them home.
Yeah, okay. She's got enough to carry on playing with her. Everybody feel free to take one or two. I'd like to see that table empty before everyone leaves, so it's take it. If you can't use it, pass it to someone who might be able to use it. Anyone who is not a member of our local chapter here or is not a member of the national chapter, they can see me or they can see any of the officers here. There's Mark McKim, myself, Bob, becoming a member of our local chapter, and they could probably talk to him direct as far as becoming a member of the national chapter. So feel free. And with that, we're going to roll right into tonight's presentation. Our tonight's presenter is Kathleen Almand, who's a professional engineer with the Society of Fire Protection Engineers. She's the executive director of SFPE, and she leads this professional society representing over 4,000 fire safety engineering professionals in over 20 countries worldwide. Prior to this position, she was the Director of Research Applications, Civil Engineering Research Foundation, and was responsible for the programs of the foundation as they relate to the transfer of research and innovation into civil engineering practice. As you can tell, I'm reading this verbatim right off the sheet. But there's a lot of things out here for Kathleen. She joined the foundation in 1994 after 8 years as Director of Construction Marketing for the American Iron and Steel Institute. Prior to joining AISI, she held consulting research positions with the Canadian steel industry and with the Forest Products Laboratory in Canada. She's also served as a consultant to the National Academy of Sciences Building Research Board. She's received her Master's of Science degree in Civil Engineering at the University of Ottawa, Canada. She's a registered professional engineer in the state of Maryland, a member of the American Society of Civil Engineers and the Society of Fire Protection Engineers. Kathleen also juggles and sword swallows and walks on water too. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce the Executive Director of SFPE, Kathleen Almand.
I'm just going to talk from here. Can you hear me? Okay. I wanted to thank Phil for inviting me. We were waiting for the perfect day in Minnesota. It took a few months, but obviously today was good. I am slowly making my way around to all the chapters in the society. I think I'm at about 20 at this point. We have 47 chapters around the world. 10 of them are outside the country, and it's really sort of the heart and soul of the society. And when I come to these meetings, I do some talking, but it's an opportunity for me to find out from you all what you think we should be doing, where we should be putting our emphasis. And the year I started with SFPE, we went right out across the country with regional meetings with the chapter presidents, and that input changed the society, really. And we're a very different organization than we were in 1996, and I'm very committed to continuing to try to get that kind of feedback. So, and plus for me, I always learn something when I come. This area, I spent the day at Futrell, came in early this morning, and I sense there's a lot going on in fire protection in the Twin Cities, as you say. So I'm going to spend probably 2/3 of my time talking about the society and what we're doing for the profession, some of the things we're working on. Phil did ask me to spend a little time talking about our white paper, which was published in March of 1998. And I have sort of about 6 overheads on that subject at the end of the talk. As I'm sure you heard from the talk, I'm not a fire protection engineer by training. I kind of fell into the profession like many of us did from civil engineering. We all fell into it from other directions, I'm sure. But, so I am not into all the intricacies of the role of the engineer and the contractor in the particular business of designing fire protection systems. But I know the white paper pretty well by now, and I know what's going on around the country as far as it's concerned. So we can spend some time talking about that too. But please interrupt me, because I would like to walk away. I think the society will be better when I leave if I hear more from you than you hear from me. So. Let me know if you can see or whatever. As I said earlier, what we have done in the last 3 years is go through a big process of trying to get input into where we are going as a society and as a profession. I think if I could characterize the change that has happened in the society, it isn't just in the last 3 years, it's probably in the last 6 or 7. In a way, we are mirroring the maturity of the discipline of fire protection engineering. The society was born in 1950, hence we're celebrating our 50th anniversary. And for most of our first 40 years, we focused very much on sort of separating the fire protection engineering profession from others that work in fire safety, defining what engineering is, working very hard on getting recognition for the engineer, the license for the engineer, its recognition in states around the country. As I'm sure you all know, our membership requirements were very strict. At the chapter level, you've always had a lot of interchange and dialogue amongst the engineering community and the enforcement community, the contracting community, and so on. We had a lot less of that at the national level. And there's a good reason for that. We were really trying to solidify what was fire protection engineering. I think that effort was very successful. The fire protection engineering licensing exam is offered in over 40 states in the country. The profession is spreading around the world. Between 15 and 20% of our members are outside of the United States, and a lot of them are in Canada, but they're all over the world. So I think that the efforts in the early days of the society were very successful in trying to define what the profession is and what it can offer to fire safety. What we've been trying to do in the last few years is really try to perhaps, I guess, make the society relate a little more to the overall fire safety community. And part of our work in chapters is that, and of course you've been doing that here at the local level for a long time. So I guess that's kind of what's been happening in some respects here in the country. Of course, I'm going to go through, this is going to sound, I'm sure you've been through the strategic planning exercise in your own firm, and it's going to sound a little bit like that. But we had to do it, and we wrote a vision statement, and that's our vision statement, that we'll provide worldwide leadership in support of excellence in fire protection engineering. That's what we're all about. Our mission is to advance the science and practice. Interestingly enough, until a couple of years ago, our mission was to advance the art and science of fire protection engineering. So that was part of the change that we made. We said, look, we're getting away from the art a little bit. Our members are out there practicing. We should be focusing on the practice, helping our members with what they're doing every day. And so that's just a simple change. We came up with a bunch of goals in the areas that our members want us to work, and although I said all those things about how we're shifting away from recognizing the discipline, I still think that it's one of the primary things that we are really focused on, and our members continue to want us to get out there and tell the world about fire protection engineering, what we do, what contribution we can make, and so that's one of our goals. Some of the activities that we're doing in that area, and hopefully you know about some of these. If you don't, we're not doing a very good job in this recognition area. But when you talk about telling the world about fire protection engineering, that means tell high school students, it means tell architects, it means tell other people that are in the community, and we're doing what we can just to get the word out on what we are and what we do. And our magazine is probably the most tangible example of what that is all about. And for those of you who haven't seen it, there's a couple of copies out there, and we can put you on the subscription list if you are interested in receiving it. All our members get it, and 6,000 other people in the country receive the magazine. And the mission of the magazine is twofold. It's for our members, but it's also to tell allied professionals about the discipline. So we have safety professionals on the list, architects, plumbing engineers, code officials, and we're trying to grow that list and trying to spread the word about who we are and what we do through the magazine. And it's been a very successful thing for us. It was a big risk thing to do, as I'm sure you can imagine, but I think it really was sort of a pride there, that we're a real engineering society. We have our own magazine, just like we were a real engineering society when we got our peer-reviewed journal. That was a big step for the society, and of course, in terms of continue. So, our career guide, there's copies of that out there. That was something that we developed last year to kind of help with the high school outreach, and that's an area where many of our chapters are active already, working at career fairs, visiting high schools, acting as judges in science fairs, and we're trying to support that at the national level with the career guide and other things. We have a new task group that's working on ideas, and there's only so much we can do, sitting in Washington. I mean, you're here out where the kids are, where the high schools are, and people are thinking about the profession and never heard of it, and so we're trying to do what we can to support you. That career guide is available to anybody who would like to make a visit to a high school to talk about fire protection engineering, wants to give it to the kid in the next block. Just give us a call and we'll provide you with some copies that you need. So that's another thing. We're trying to get out there in the enforcement community. We are, although we're not a very big staff, again, we often rely on our chapters to help us with this. We're generally given a complimentary booth at the model code meetings at NFPA, and we staff that booth and talk about fire protection engineering, what we do, and how we can work with the enforcement community. I'm active in Washington with the American Association of Engineering Societies. That's to tell the other engineering societies that there is a discipline called fire protection engineering, and it's been very helpful for me to understand some of the challenges that we're facing as engineers in this country, declining enrollments in engineering schools and so on are being faced, in spades by some of the other engineering disciplines. So that's been very helpful. We're able to work with them on some of this career stuff. And I guess recognition in our own members, we got these little pins, and we're trying to, let everybody know that if you're a member of the society, that they can wear it, and recognition, things like that. So those of you who are members of SFE will have seen some information on that. Okay, in the technical area, again, I guess our goal, advance the practice through research and development, transfer of those developments, and promoting innovative technologies. SFE had no technical staff until 1995. The executive director wasn't an engineer. We had no technical people on the staff at all. And again, it was a big reach for a small society. We were helped with some grants from the National Bureau of Standards at the time. And we hired our first technical director, Brian Meacham, graduate of WPI. And Brian did a great deal to kind of raise our, technical productivity. He got task groups going. He got thinking going that as an engineering society, we should be developing technical guidance for our members so that when our members go to an authority having jurisdiction and they're trying to get a design approved, they have some kind of backup. They have a document from their engineering society that says these are the 4 methods you can use to solve a certain kind of problem, and the engineering society kind of agrees that these are the limitations of some of those methods and so on. And we have embarked on a very ambitious, we're embarking slowly, but program to really develop a whole set of guidance documents for our members to help them do their job. And Brian's work initially in the whole performance-based design area, kind of focus on that and focus on how to systematically think about fire protection engineering as a performance-based approach to fire safety, really got us all started. So, and we're going strong at the moment. We have a new technical steering committee. We have 5 new task groups. We recently had a big meeting in Washington to define a research agenda for the profession. We're working on trying to find funds to fund some of that research. And we published our first engineering practice guide, which is on radiation last year. We have at least 2 more coming up this year. So I would encourage all of you to think about getting involved in some of our task groups. These are some of the ones that have been around for a little while. These are some of the new ones. Task groups all meet by teleconference these days, so there's no need to come to Washington to a meeting. It's a very rewarding experience to be involved in an SFP task group, and our task groups are not of the elite, knowledgeable folks in a particular area. We are trying to develop documents which are guidance for the profession, so they have to be practically oriented and written in such a way that are, is helpful to the practicing engineer. So I encourage you, if you have any interest at all, to talk to me or call Morgan. These are some of the guidance documents that are published or in the works. The first 2 are out. By Canadian accent. The Engineering Practice Guide for Assessing Flame Radiation to Targets. That's the first one that was published. The Performance-Based Analysis and Design Guide is now available, published through NMPA. Received a grant from NMPA to do that work. So that's out there. That's a very important document. It will be referenced by both NMPA's Life Safety Code and the ICC Performance Code. We have our first computer model evaluation coming out this summer, and the second engineering practice guide authored by Nick Dempsey, actually from WPI, will be out shortly, actually. So we're getting there. We have a long way to go, of course. In the area of professional competence, this is where some of the white paper stuff comes in. The goal is to support the ethical and competent practice of fire protection engineering. We've been talking about that all night. Really, this is something, it's one of the best kept secrets, I guess, of SFPE. We write every year the professional engineering exam in fire protection that is offered across the country. We, meaning our members, contribute questions for that exam. And our members get together once a year to grade the exam. So we are a fundamental part of the whole licensing practice for fire protection engineering. If we didn't do that, we wouldn't be licensed. And it's a tremendous volunteer effort on the part of our members. I mean, it's a wonderful thing that they've been doing for a long time. In addition to that, we are trying to support this goal in other ways. I'm going to talk about the white paper later, so I'm not going to talk about it now, but one of the follow-ons from the white paper is some new education programs that we're working on sprinkler and alarm design as part of this whole argument about professional and ethical competence in the area of fire system design. We are working to revise our model code of ethics to try to, there's a movement, the whole engineering community, to get a single model code. I mean, why should my ethics as a civil engineer be different than your ethics as a fire protection engineer? Once you get working with these other engineering societies, sometimes there's politics pop up. But that is our goal. It is the goal of the engineering community to get a single model code. And we're participating in that, and I think that's a good thing for the profession. We're there, we're talking, and so on. So the other thing for any of you who haven't written the PE exam in fire protection, from now on, it's going to be multiple choice exam. So and we've been working hard on new question design and so on for that. So that's a big activity of the engineering licensing committee that has a major responsibility in this area. Global development, just I mentioned how active we are internationally. You've already heard about the Lund conference. We've done a little bit of work down in South America. Although we have 15 to 20% of our members overseas, we have 12 in South America. So somehow we seem to have missed that part of the world, or maybe that part of the world has missed fire protection engineers. That's probably more to the point. So we've done a little bit of work with the insurance companies down in South America to talk to them about getting involved. So we're trying to be active overseas. It's a little easier these days with electronic communication, but it's a very expensive thing. Membership, another new thing about SFE. Until last year, we did not have a goal as an organization to grow our membership. We didn't. We wanted to provide good services to our members, but this is a new thing for us, thinking about expanding. Remember, we don't do membership marketing. You never get anything from S&P that says, you know, get a member, get 50%, you know, you don't get any of that kind of stuff. But you probably will in the next few years. So what we realized is that we have about 4,000 members if you include the students. And there's probably at least double in America anyway, practicing fire protection engineering full-time. So I see some, no, you don't think so? You don't think so? Practicing fire protection. I didn't say highly confident. They're not members of SFP, so they can't be highly confident. Anyway, so anyway, we are exploring. We don't know. I mean, that's one of the challenges we have as an organization. I mean, Maryland is the only school that graduates ABET accredited engineers, and we know there's a lot of people who aren't Maryland grads practicing fire protection engineering. So we just don't know how to play. A lot of them don't know about us. So we are just beginning some of this. The magazine is part of it, and you know, some of the things we're trying to do is, you know, we're trying to do a better job for our own members, which is important, and then just trying to get the word out. I think that's the way you really attract people to an organization, not with campaigns for membership, but with member value. So. For those of you who don't know, we've just started a new liability insurance program under Riverside Lloyd's. I have information on that if anybody wants it.
May I chime in?
Sure.
ASME provides us members with disability coverage, which is fabulous package.
We have disability coverage. I don't know. I don't know what the comparison of the two plans are, but in fact, it's probably the same. We participate with. It's called the Engineers Trust, which is several of the other engineering societies. It's all under Seabury Smith was the organization. So we have it. So we don't benefit from it in any way. We don't financially benefit by providing it to our members. It's just a member benefit. So yeah, so we have all that, but if you don't know about it, it means probably a lot of other things. We have health insurance, cancer insurance, and all that kind of stuff too, which we don't handle personally. The insurance company does. But you, as a member of SFB, you're a good risk, I guess. So you get all these benefits. So anyway, so that's part of what we're doing. Education. If the magazine was a big thing for us, the second big thing in the last couple of years is a decision to go out across the country in a big way with some of our education programs. That was another risky business for us. Last year was the first time, and hopefully you've heard about these seminars. There's an education, or the education calendar talks about everything that we're doing this year. We have 3 active seminars, 1- and 2-day seminars. We'll talk to about a couple of them, smoke management, changes to NFPA 72, and there's one on introduction to sprinkler design for the engineer. We will be starting a fire alarm design seminar for the engineer, starting it this October. It's supposed to be a very good seminar, being developed by our members, for our members. And we're starting some of the performance-based design and so on. But we are trying to get out into the, you know, out here and out in California, the South and so on. And partly to let people know about SFB, but also to try and get away from this Eastern feeling of the profession about SFB that's been around for a long time. And, you know, we're kind of marginal on these things. It varies in the region and so on. But we are, for the first time this year, doing our own professional development week, kind of what every engineering society should have, you know, is a place to go once a year for their members to get the latest in training. And we're putting all our seminars together in that week in Baltimore in October. So please come. You get a 50% discount on the second seminar. And And we have a symposium on flammable combustible liquids that they offered at the same time. We do alarm seminar. Morgan's giving a seminar on the design guide. And it should be a very good program. CEU tracking means if you would like us to track your CEUs for you as you get them in other programs, we will do that for you and issue you a certificate at the end of the year from SFE that says, you know, our records show you have gathered X number of CEUs. They don't have to be CEUs from SFE. Just file on you with your records. And this hasn't been a very popular thing, but it's still available. It's free, so if anybody wants to do it. The regional seminars I've talked about, we're finding that with 4,000 members, these seminars are only successful if we really work with other people. And our smoke management seminar we're doing with ASHRAE, the sprinkler design seminar we're doing with NFSA, and we hope to do the alarm seminar with AFAA. We're just looking for people to work with. So we're also partnering with several of our chapters on these seminars in one way or another. You know, they'll buy the seminar, or they'll help us out with it and they'll make a contribution to their scholarship fund, or they'll staff the table and make a financial contribution or whatever. So we're just trying to get out there more with what we're doing. So all of those things are open. And then I guess training for the allied professional. The Fire Academy has come to us and asked us if we would go across the country with a performance-based design seminar for fire officials and building officials. They're free. We can never get a contractual arrangement signed with them. We'll start that. It's supposed to happen this summer. ICC has asked us to do, we're going to do our first web-based seminar, 2-hour performance-based design with a little bit of funding from ICC, and we're going to be teaching that at some time in the fall. That's, I believe that that's what we should be doing as a society. We're so small that electronic format is probably the best for us, but there's a lot of investment in this one. So we're going to try and see how it goes. And it's interesting to see not very many of you have taken the NFSA seminars. I was really surprised about that because I've heard that they've been very successful in other areas. We're also working, we've got one of our task groups is trying to figure out what we can do with the architects. Talk to them about architecture. Yeah, well, yeah, that's a task group for you all to join. That's interesting. So, I think I've already talked about most of these new education programs that are coming up this year. Lund is a very exciting thing for us. It's the first international conference that we've done. We did one in Ottawa in 1996, and that's been quite exciting. So we've done very well with it. We're partnering with Lund University, and it seems to be going well. So we'll see. Anyway, information. This used to be called publications, but we're trying to go more electronic. And if you haven't visited sfpe.org, you should. We revamped it last year in May, and it is it's a static website. You can't do anything online, and we're hoping to change that this year. That's our new thing. But it has information on careers in the profession. It has information about our education programs. The latest issue of the newsletter is there for anybody. You can download it, PDF. So it's pretty good. We have a listserv up there that we do jointly with the International Association of Fire Safety Science. So if you want to talk to a scientist, you can send them an email on the listserv at SFE. Yeah. So that's an idea of what we're doing in that area. So we're trying to be a little bit of a clearinghouse for other people's publications. We don't, profit from this, but our members should come to SFP to find out what's, information. In other ways, these are some publications by others that we offer, and you can get them from us. So, organization. This is just how do we, do all of this, and we are, I guess, things I've already talked about. This is our staff. You should hopefully know one or more of these names if you're a member of SFD. This is it at the moment. There are 5 of us. And we all, Julie looks after all our education publications activities. May's the membership person working as our technical director, he's also the technical editor of the magazine. You'll see his picture on the back page of the magazine, and myself. So we're a small group, but that's who we are. So if you call us, you can talk to any one of us or email us on the website. 50th anniversary. We started in 1950 as a section of NFPA. In 1971, we became our own organization. So, but apparently we're celebrating the 50th anniversary, so that's okay. I mean, I'm happy to celebrate 50 years. And we're going to have a big party on May 14th in Denver. We'll have an annual meeting in the afternoon that Sunday. You're all invited. It'll be in the convention center. I don't have a room number yet, but we will have that up on the website shortly. And we are going to, in addition to getting reports from me and the president, we'll have a technical program which will be featuring some of the projects that have been described in Fire Protection Engineering magazine. So your own Michael Huron will be there, but there will be others as well from across the country talking about recent jobs. Then we'll have a big banquet in the evening, and all our past presidents will be there. We have written a history of the society, and did you contribute something, to the Minnesota chapter? We got a lot of contributions from the chapters on what they've been doing in the last 50 years. And we're going to do it electronically, and we'll make it available to all the chapters, so you'll be able to do a little PowerPoint show when it's done. Probably actual birthday is in October, so maybe you want to do that for or something. And that's some of the other stuff that's going on. So it's kind of a party year for SFP. Okay, I'm going to talk about the white paper now, I guess. Is there anything else you want to?
Okay.
No, go ahead.
First, there's some large pockets of the country where there is no SFP. Omaha. How does a person go about? Well, you can do it two ways. Shouldn't SFPE be going out to some of these pockets and starting something? And secondly, if there is someone in Omaha, for example, how do they start?
Well, I can help. Okay. We have sort of support stuff for starting a new chapter. Nothing very formal, but I don't know if anybody was here when this chapter started. Anybody here that would have been around? Just ask this guy. Yeah, it takes a group, a small group of very dedicated individuals. But there's no way from Washington I can make an Oklahoma chapter successful, a Nebraska chapter successful. But as I'm sure it can tell you, we can provide, so I will come out, we'll provide the support, and you have a lot of lessons you can learn from what's gone on in other places. There are a lot of speakers that, kind of make the SFP chapter circuit that would be helpful. We could provide you with ideas for speakers. We have a model constitution, so all that stuff is there. But without a group who really are committed to doing the work that you guys do every month or every day, or how often you spend on SFP activities, it just won't happen. So every year at NFPA, I have 5 or 6 people from overseas come to see me and say, I really want to start a chapter of SFP in India. And I get all excited. I give them all this stuff, and I write them letters. And but it's only one guy. It takes more than that. It's a few. But I think the SFP chapter fills a hole in regions and cities that just needs to be filled. And you often find, or at least some other chapters, that we just regenerated the Rio Grande chapter. It's been dormant for about 20 years, and 3 guys got together and had the first meeting. We had about 25 people. So it's there, but it just takes a little bit. I don't know if you have anything to add to that. Probably a lot to add to it, right?
I said the question, a comment. The question is what SFPE doing with the traditional educational institutions at the University of Maryland, PI, Oklahoma, Berkeley. I'm not sure what the status of those things are right now. But that's, I'd like to address that. And just one other comment, that I know that Dave Luck is actively, we're talking about the education and advancing not the art, but the practice of fire protection engineering and training new students. And Dave is, it's been, what, 20 years now? It's been going on 20 years at WPI, the master's program at WPI. And they are actively going out and making a virtual program that's available in other parts of the country. And I think the IIT is now, has just bought in with Dave on a virtual program to offer a master's program in fire protection engineering. And there is some talk now, in fact, I was talking with Dave here just the other day, and he's looking at going to the University of Minnesota to look at putting together a master's program to be offered at the University of Minnesota in fire protection engineering. So that, some of those things are happening right now, and I guess what I want to briefly address what you see SFPE doing with
Well, I would be able to conversation about this at this table, and I guess my feeling is, from what I have heard from the National Council for Engineering Examiners for Engineering, so NCES, this organization which is sort of the collection of the licensing requirements around the country, I feel if we don't get another program, an ABET accredited engineering program somewhere in the country, that I really think the license eventually will be in jeopardy. I think that we are very unique to have this, the license recognized in over 40 states and only have one undergraduate program in the country. It's a very, kind of shaky situation. And I really feel strongly, and many of our chapters feel this way when I go around the country. In fact, in '97, when I put education up on the board, thinking they want to talk about continuing education for our members, they all said, we want a fire protection program at our university in our city. And there have been many false starts in that regard, a lot of wheels spinning and energy expended. And we have a new committee at SFB called the Post-Secondary Education Committee, and the board formed it for the express purpose of supporting the existing programs and doing what we can to explore other opportunities. But I can't say we've done, we just started the committee, and Dave is on it, as is Steve Speaker from Maryland, and Tom Woodford, and Brady. There bit of hand-wringing, about what can be done. And Dave Luck from WPI's approach is, I think he believes that this distance learning supplement to existing engineering programs is the way to go. And I don't think that's necessarily self-serving. I think he believes that just from what he has seen. But there have been certificate programs in California. We were just talking about how are they doing. I think that what the local communities really need, the licensing boards may need more full ABET accredited programs. At the local level, you are looking for trained fire protection engineers and people who know something about some of the basics, so you don't have to train them from scratch. And that could probably be accomplished by a certificate program or some subset of a full 4-year program that was in fire protection.
Maybe something may come of that, because I'll tell you, if you try to go hire a fire protection engineer out of school, the demand is way outstripping
It's terrible.
supply.
And,
and that's something to tell, if you know the students that are looking for an engineering profession, to encourage them to take a look at fire protection, because the money certainly is there, the demand is there, the need is there, and by all means. Dave has, as an example for Dave, he's got all of the CDs and the pamphlets and brochures to hand out, as does Maryland.
Yeah. And I think that you know, it is a unique thing about fire protection to say to a kid who's interested in engineering. We just had ASHRAE down to our board of directors meeting to talk about their membership issues and all that stuff, learning from them about what they have done. And they believe that their market is saturated in America, that, you know, there's just not a whole bunch of new people and not a whole bunch of even new jobs. Right now, we have a peak year where everybody's busier than they can stand, but you know, fire protection, I think, is different. I think there's a lot of potential there. We just need the bodies to, and there is a gap. There's, you know, you can go to a high school with a career guide or the CD from Maryland, but, you know, when the kid says, okay, I want to go to fire protection, and you have to travel across the country to go to the University of Maryland. You know, that's, you say, well, you know, maybe I'll do that later, and then he gets interested in something else. So, we, you know, the board is very committed to helping in this regard. You know, we have written letters, Maryland's graduate program was in Jeopardy a couple of years ago, and we wrote these letters that were helpful in that way, you know, as the national organization or international organization. So we're very committed to it, but it's a big dilemma. It really is. And whether this distance learning thing will work, I don't know. So, and another question.
No, I think you addressed the SFE's role in education.
Yes. Somebody else? I would just encourage you to kind of get involved in some way. I think you can have lots of people here who have been very active with the chapter. But it's a lot easier to get involved at the national level than it used to be, because we were doing more electronically and we're doing more through teleconferencing and stuff. So if you have any interest, let me know. Okay, well, this is shakier ground for me, but we'll talk about this to the degree that I'm capable. In 1998, I joined S&P in May of 1997. In March of 1998, we published the revised S&P white paper. We did have a white paper in 1990. It actually isn't a heck of a lot different from this one, but we sort of got more publicity. So, and in writing this paper to talk about the role of the engineering technician, we were actively engaged with AFAA and NFSA. And the AFSA was writing of the paper. By the time we got to the end of it, AFAA and NFSA endorsed the paper and sort of shared position, and AFSA did not. So that's kind of where we stand. The white paper itself is not, it's not such a hot topic anymore, but certainly legislation in this area around the country and the role of the engineering technician remains, something that's very commercial importance to a lot of people. So I'm just going to talk about kind of what's in the paper, and I guess to summarize, actually some of these slides I took down to Buenos Aires this fall to talk about what does a fire protection engineer do. So it's a little general, but anyway, the paper basically says that in this whole business of designing fire protection systems, the fire protection engineer may have a broader role, but in the system design, this is sort of the preferred role for the engineer. He executes the design concept. He may or may not execute the layout and shop drawings. He will review the shop drawings, not stamp them with approval, but he'll review them to see if they're in accordance with the design concept. He'll work to get design approval with DHJ, and if necessary, provide construction period services. So, and the definitions of all these things, you guys probably know them better than I do, but what does develop design concepts mean? He uses documents like this to develop those design concepts. What are design concepts for sprinkler systems? This is how they're defined in the white paper. Density, water flow, and pressure requirements, classification of hazards, and confirmation of hydraulic and preliminary hydraulic design. For alarm systems, what are design concepts? Appropriate building system interfaces, effective construction on system design, selection of devices, device location, spacing, control panel location. What is layout and shop drawing? Summary. you all know about. What is design documentation? Application approval process, so on. And I took the other day in preparation for that. I'll read it out loud. I took straight out of the white paper, talks about roles, and then preferable, acceptable, and limited projects only. This is right out of the white paper. So for design concepts, the preferable, I guess let me just go vertically rather than horizontally, as I described before. The preferable way to go about all of this is the engineer does the design concept. He may or may not do the layout. He'll do the review of the shop drawings, and several, I guess, of the major firms have a review stamp as opposed to an approval stamp, which they all use on the drawings. Approval of the shop drawings, the HJ, and construction period services, the engineer. An acceptable method is the engineer does the design concepts, the engineer technician does the layout, the engineer or the HJ will do the review of the shop drawing. Approval is by the HJ, and construction period services by the owner's representative or the engineer. And then limited projects, which we worked with the sprinkler contractors to try to define what a limited project was. We said it's up to the HJ, up to local conditions, design concepts and layout and so on. So that's what the white paper says. And as I was saying to Phil earlier, we didn't receive AFSA endorsement of it, and we didn't receive NSPE, which is the National Society of Professional Engineers endorsement. So it kind of didn't please anybody. We kind of hit the middle of the mark there. So anyway, yes.
I noticed the exclusion of FSSA, which would be special hazards,
Right.
fire protection.
Right.
Why are they not?
Well, that's a good question. And in fact, FSSA is involved somewhat with SFPE. And in May of 1998, after the white paper was written, we did have a roundtable at our annual meeting. We did have Roger Bourgeois, who is quite active in FSSA, come and speak to the white paper. And I'm not sure if they actually formally endorsed it, but
I'd be very involved. I'm past president of FSSA, and I think if FSPE is going to talk about this goal, then certainly the segment represented by FSSA should be included if it's going to be a truly professional society review of all of the agreements. It's absolutely disconcerting.
yeah. Well, I guess it's not too late to send the white paper to FSSA and ask them if I'm sure it must have been discussed, because I know Roger brought comments to that roundtable. So anyway, where is the white paper now? As we knew, it's sort of being used to justify this and used to justify that, and we continue to stand behind what's in it as kind of a reflection of reality, plus what is the preferred role for the engineer. SFE has engineering members, we have contractor members, and our board remains, committed to this is the correct position. We have been asked to participate. There has been some legislative activities in Florida and in other places where there is some legislation which legislates a PE stamp on layout drawings, and we have not, supported that legislation. Actually, what's going on right now is an activity to overturn the legislation, and we've said the white paper is our position. There are, some situations, limited projects where anyway, that's where we are. I guess most of SFPE's activities are, focusing on where we're going as a profession and focusing on system design based on goals and objectives. Solutions based on engineering, not on prescribed schedules and layouts, and focusing on more levels of safety and cost effective systems. So I guess that's the engineering. Anyway, that's a brief summary. I have a few copies of the white paper out there. It's on the website. If anybody would like to see it.
I have a question. At the risk of sounding
two questioning. Your white paper, when you take the roles of the people in the industry, you back off on the engineer approving the design and the layout. You review it. Okay. The fire departments across the state, some of them will review it, some will approve it. And yet you take the stance that the only person that should, or the optimum person to lay out the design is the engineer rather than the technician. By technician, I mean the nice set.
Or the technician. All the optimal is.
And layout, but not design.
Well, one of the things I learned early in this whole white paper process is that this word design seems to have several different meanings depending on who you're talking to. I'm not trying to play a semantics game, but it actually is played a great deal, this word. And the word is design concept, and I mean, I showed the slide there what that definition is. I think there's an understanding that the design concept comes from the engineering's calculations. The layout needs to be done by a competent layout person, and that person is either the engineer or the technician. And one of the things we really learned in this process, which resulted in these two courses we are now offering, is that there was a lot of valid criticism from the sprinkler contractor community about the capabilities of the engineering community in doing layout drawings and stuff for sprinkler systems. So,
but shouldn't the engineer take final responsibility to approve, not just review, but approve? Review means I've seen it, I agree with your concept, I think you've got a good grasp, and yet I'm going to hold judgment because if it's not right, you're still on the hook. Isn't it, shouldn't it be the engineer says, I've looked at it, you're doing it right, here's the changes I'm going to make, and I approve this design?
well, I think the words in the white paper are, reading it again this morning to try to refresh my memory, that if that layout is done under the supervision of the engineer, in other words, it's his guy or he's hired to take that responsibility, then is when he stamps the drawing. But if he's just asked to check the layout to see if it's in accordance with his concept, then that's when he doesn't stamp. So, you know, there's some people who want engineers to stamp these drawings and some people who don't. So, and that is, I guess, the professional engineering sense. You're going to stamp a piece of work that you feel fully responsible for. If you either did it, or the person who did it is in your employ, or you have that relationship where you've taken on that responsibility. That's my understanding.
That raises another question.
Okay.
When you're talking about choosing to take responsibility, ultimately, who should take ownership of the design of the systems? In other words, let's say litigation-wise, should it ever fail, whose responsibility is it ultimately? Who should take ownership?
Well,
Anybody that touches the paper is going to be in line.
I was going to say that there are several names on this list. I mean, I see different roles up here, and it seems to me that if the final product is an installed alarm system, then each of these individuals in the process has had some role. Construction period services, 8 times.
In other words, for those of you who think that this is the Engineers Full Employment Act, it's not. It's really the Lawyers Full Employment Act when it comes to litigating responsibility. But shouldn't someone take the forefront on it? I mean, is it the, let's say, layout person's responsibility to bring the deficiencies of the engineering concept to someone's attention? How is that handled? You know, it kind of goes both ways. You know, to where ultimately, yeah, somebody. I think it's basically a kind of rhetorical question because, you know, realistically, you know, who takes ultimate responsibility?
Well, I think what's happening, at least from what I hear, and you know, I'm not in the middle of this, that more and more contractors, this whole design build stuff, more and more contracting companies have PDs on their staff. More and more engineering companies have NICE certified technicians, so that they have the full, they can do the whole package. so on. So, I mean, if that's the way the world is going, maybe that's the answer to what you're talking about.
Can you back up the...
Sure. Design documentation? No.
I'm not sure. I'll go for it. No, that's probably...
Layout and shop drawing development?
Oh, that's another one.
Alarms? Sprinklers?
Keep going, Greg.
Welcome.
There we go, next one. Okay, the word assuring was the word that jumped off the sheet of here.
Assuring. Assuring public safety.
Assuring public safety. That's a kind of a leap.
Yeah, but the engineer, that's not implying that the engineer is the only person to assure, and this is the engineer's role in the assurance of public safety. You should misinterpret either one. So.
Well, I just believe the word, it was carefully chosen.
Well, that is an excerpt from the white paper that has the engineer's role in assuring public safety, the technician's role in assuring public safety, so it's not an exclusive thing. One of the things about writing a document like the white paper is that it's not a long document, but it's like about 8 pages. And most of the problems we have had with the white paper have been that we simply haven't read it, and I mean in depth. And it was wordsmithed for over a year. And many of the things I was hearing about what we were saying there about the engineers taking over the designs for, I mean, it just wasn't in there. But it's obviously a very political issue and one where there's lots of money involved. And, if you ask me, gee, did my story ever? I guess I would say no, because it really brought the dialogue out. And it's been a hard thing for an engineering society to write about.
Well, one thing I can envision where this could go on a, it could go either way for the public. Good, if indeed better engineered systems that are the lower cost for the owner and provide a higher degree of performance for its application versus an over-enforced, over-controlled, monolithic, bureaucratic nightmare for the public, which is, I'm sure nobody wants to see that. I heard about a system the other day that was designed, and it was a lactose-based system to replace just air and nitrogen in the dry system. This doesn't freeze, and it doesn't, it's a milk product, great for the local farmers. But to me, this spoke of true engineering. This was somebody using something in a laboratory where instead of reading out an old code and a standard, and then this thing is becoming truly scientific. It's moving ahead.
Well, I think if there was controversy with, and saying so, and it wasn't here, and it really wasn't here, because I think there was an understanding that if you're qualified to lay out sprinkler systems, you can lay them out. And you might be a technician, and you might be an engineer, and there's a lot of questions about how many competent engineers are there around to lay out sprinkler systems, but since there was a sense here that the competent person should be doing this. There was a question about the review of the shop drawings, and the question was more about engineers stamping the shop drawings, which is not in the white paper, and is something that is abused in other places in the country, but there's kind of rubber stamping problem in some cases.
In other disciplines, though, too.
In other disciplines, too, right. I guess part of my struggle with this is, I'm civil engineering, and have been through this already in other disciplines, we have that, as a construction industry, been through this, but we're just not there yet in fire protection. We're not comfortable enough with roles and so on and so on. So, but the chapter dialogue that we have every month, we have the engineers talking to the contracting community. This is what's eventually going to work all this out. And, you know, we get engineers who are doing engineering and, you know, right now there's struggle legislatively. I think it's good to keep this out of legislation. Agree on roles rather than requiring an engineer stamp on a layout drawing is what's covered in this. All right. Well, it says preliminary hydraulic calculations, although I think in the white paper it talks about how the layout is hydraulic, the detailed hydraulic calculations are part of the layout. So, actually, Russ Fleming has written 2 or 3 articles on this subject. He's been very helpful in kind of, from the FSA, kind of teaching me all this, I guess, and an understanding of the role of the engineer and the technician. And FSA has been supportive of the white paper. They were down in Florida testifying a couple weeks ago, supporting the concept of the white paper. So, at least from their perspective, it seems to make sense. I think there's a lot of argument about what the project is too. You know, I think that's obviously it's been a question. So, anyway.
What is the vision for elimination? What does that mean?
Well, again, we stop short of defining it. Some states define what a limited project is. It's anywhere from one is 50 minutes or something. Other is 1 head. I don't know. I mean, it ranges all over the map, but it really, you know, it's kind of the HJ, I guess. That's interpretation about that. That's when the engineers get all excited about it. Shouldn't be any limited project. It's a question of, it's a judgment. That's what it is.
Well, I think Scott brings up a good point too, because between the contractor community and the engineering community, looking at a project from 2 different eyes, the contractor, or the good contractors, they want to provide, you know, the minimum code requirements of this building at the best possible price for the owner. The engineer's role is to make sure that the code items are addressed first, you know, prior to, you know, the price issue. And the engineer, if he's going to err, he's going to err on the conservative side. He's going to throw, I won't say more bells and whistles, but more conservative thinking in his design. Again, from a litigation standpoint, you know, they should, you know, rather than trying to cut corners to which the contractor is going to approach it from an economical standpoint, and also try and satisfy, we're both trying to satisfy the same intent, and that's give the, you know, the owner the best possible fire protection for the least amount of money. But sometimes we approach it from 2 different angles.
Well, I think one of the things that fire protection engineering did, you know, is there are sprinkler systems on job specified because there's an engineer who says to the owner, you know, you should use the sprinkler system. So that's better for everybody. That's better for the contractor, it's better for the engineer, and then the engineer can look at the other fire safety systems in the building and work at, you know, does the front end work on the integration of the systems. And I mean, to me, those are the kinds of roles that safety engineering are playing. So hopefully that's what it's all about. You know, it's a design team. And, I guess the smaller the project, the more difficult that gets. Certainly the big projects.
I think more that the engineer is willing to work with the contractor, more of the contractor is willing to work with the engineer. It's just that the contractor and engineers who want to stay on an island and both thinking that they know what's best for the owner. The owner's the one who ends up losing.
Yeah, I've got about 5 more minutes. Is that right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so go ahead. Go
Up to the airport.
Yeah, I've got a flying minutes. Yeah.
All I was going to say is thank you for coming. I appreciate your efforts coming here, and I really appreciate the funding that it took to get you here. I mean, you took get to come here.
Well, it
took
wasn't
your
so
time
much,
and-
you know, I got here at 8, I got one of those great Northwest flights, you know, you come in at the crack of dawn and you leave at midnight.
I appreciate you coming to.
I'm very happy to be here, and you know, we really, it's very important to SFPD that we get a sense of what we should be doing as a society, and we can't get it from Washington. So come to see us if you're in Washington. We're in Bethesda, we're on the Red Line. We have a small conference room if you'd like to hold a meeting. We'd like to see you and join the society, get all this great stuff that is coming along, and come to the birthday party.
Thank you.
Again, I'd also like to extend thanks to Kathleen, SFPE, for allowing her to come out here and address our chapter. This is the first time I can recall in a long time to where someone from SFPE has graced our doorways and been able to give us a full presentation. Next month, our meeting is going to be the last Wednesday of the month, I believe, Ken. Okay, and it'll be hosted by, I believe, Tom and company. And company. If Tom, if you'd like to just stand up for just a quick second, there's a brief, just real brief overview of next month's presentation. That's as brief as it will be.
No, I guess I'm struggling. I made the offer about, I don't know, 6 months ago, to try to bring in some of the alarm side into our chapter. And I'm struggling to pick a topic that would benefit the majority of people. I know there's a lot of knowledge, there's been a lot of changes on the alarm side, and I'm not sure what exactly to focus in on. But there will be something. I wish I could tell you exactly what it is, but I would be able to
Just is the fire alarm in our industry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
That's
as far as that logical part goes.
There you go. That's,
We'll get something together. And if anybody has any ideas or any interest that you'd like to see on the alarm side, feel free to give me a call.
well, in Tom's defense, May's meeting is going to be sponsored by NFSA. They're going to be giving a seminar, and they're a little uncommittal on what they're going to be talking about yet right now, too. They will be speaking on our behalf, the national, and somebody the national is going to be speaking with us. I'd like to mention that all our presentations are videotaped, and Chris Willems with Futrell Fires have been doing all the videotaping for us. We have an extensive library, probably got about, well, extensive for us, we just started 3.5 years ago, so we have roughly about 3 dozen videotapes. Anybody would like a copy, they can come see me afterwards and get a business card, and I'll make sure that they get a copy of the tapes that we have in the library. If I'm interested in you, feel free to check them out for a week. It's free. We don't charge anything for the rental. It's not like Hollywood Video where you charge $2 a day if you're late with it. And I guess that would be it for tonight's meeting.